Tonight, last-minute pushback. More than a dozen law professors and a human rights commissioner urge the provincial government to shelve its Parents' Bill of Rights as debate wraps up. Also, a Saskatchewan family split apart by the Israel-Hamas conflict. We speak to a Prince Albert man who worries for his wife and children stuck in Gaza.
Oh, there we go, green.
Plus, some pint-sized recruits are helping Regina police with speeders in school zones.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Thursday, October 19th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. The marathon debate over the government's new Parental Bill of Rights is drawing to a close with a vote expected tomorrow. From Monday night until early this afternoon, MLAs heard 33 hours of discussion. Almost all of that was used by opposition MLAs speaking about their concerns. Most of the criticism is centered on the pronoun policy, which requires parental consent for kids under 16 to change their gender expression at school. A judge temporarily halted the policy, saying it could cause irreparable harm. Today, the NDP education critic asked the Minister of Education what consultations took place before the policy was created in late August.
I will give him one more attempt without talking about casework or hockey games or grocery stores, and without talking about what he heard after the policy was introduced. Before the policy was created, during a handful of days in August, who did the ministry talk to?
I recognize the minister.
I'll say it again, Mr. Speaker. We have consulted with experts in children's lives, that is their parents. We've done that all across the province. We've done it in every constituency, community after community. That's the process for consultation. That member, I'm not sure if that member has drafted a piece of legislation himself or introduced a piece of legislation himself in this assembly, Mr. Speaker. I apologize if I'm mistaken on that. But Mr. Speaker, again, the people that have been consulted on this bill are the experts in children's lives, and that is Saskatchewan parents.
The bill will move to third reading tomorrow morning for one final debate. It's expected to pass a few hours after that. The bill will become law once it's passed and receives royal assent. Late this afternoon, the NDP introduced a do no harm amendment to that bill. It would mean students do not have to get parental consent if a mental health professional believes they will be harmed. The Sask Party government voted it down. The bill requires parental consent in all cases. And while all of this is wrapping up, the interim head of the Saskatchewan Human Rights Commission says the government should shelve the policy. As Jason Warwick reports, that was echoed by a group of USask law professors.
The interim Saskatchewan Human Rights Commissioner is urging the government to reconsider its Parents' Bill of Rights. It would require teachers to get a parent's permission before a student under 16 can use a different gender-related name or pronoun. It also invokes the notwithstanding clause to bypass the courts.
Usually, when there are differences of opinion, there is usually a middle ground, and that middle ground then usually satisfies both of the groups, at least to the extent that they are comfortable with it.
Barry Wilcox says the Commission has a team of professionals to help navigate complex issues of human rights.
We remain, as I say, ready, willing, and able to assist in any way that we can. And we're always here to protect the human rights of all Saskatchewanians.
Some of the top legal minds at the U of S Faculty of Law also want the government to press pause. 14 professors and instructors signed a letter addressed to Premier Moe and Education Minister Jeremy Cockrell. They're concerned about the government's preemptive use of the notwithstanding clause in Bill 137. They say this use of the notwithstanding clause is well outside of the normal legal process and should be only used in the most unusual and urgent of circumstances. The law professors note that the Court of King's Bench judge who issued an injunction on the policy said it could cause irreparable harm. The writers say the government is knowingly overriding the constitutional rights of its citizens and acting in haste. They urge the government to allow the normal legal process to take its course. The Justice Minister defends the government's use of the notwithstanding clause.
That is a legislative tool. That means that a government which brings forward policy and uses the notwithstanding clause, that government will also be judged on that policy, and we're willing to be judged on that policy. It is a legislative tool.
The legal challenge will still play out in a Saskatchewan court, but with the notwithstanding clause in effect, its outcome will have no effect on the law. Jason Warwick, CBC News, Saskatoon.
A Prince Albert man is scared for the safety of his wife and 4 children who are trapped in Gaza. Israeli strikes are pummeling the besieged Gaza Strip nearly 2 weeks into fighting between Hamas and Israel. Dean Patterson has more.
Those are the toys here. They are everywhere.
Abdullah Al-Garbawi hasn't touched his children's bedrooms since they left. Toys are stacked in bins in one room, a bed is lined with plushies in another. He can't sleep, thinking of his wife Sabrine and his 4 children, ages 3 to 12, sleeping wherever they can in Gaza.
It's hard for me. I just want to know if they are okay or not, if they are safe or not. Now I'm just concentrating about my small family, but still, my grand family.
Since the conflict began, he says 2 of his relatives have been killed. He's only seen his wife and children through rare video calls, and once in the background of a live news report from Gaza.
So that time it was a really hard time for them because I saw them and I cannot do any help for them. I saw them suffering there, but I don't know, that was a hard time for me.
He and his family have lived in this home in Prince Albert for 2 years. In February, they got their Canadian citizenship, and in June, they decided to travel back to Egypt and Gaza so the children could meet their family. Al-Garbawi returned to Saskatchewan for work for a few months later, and his wife and children were to stay a couple months longer. But now, they can't get out. With their relatives' home destroyed, they're trying to stay ahead of airstrikes. But it's not just his family. Al-Garbawi worries about others in the region.
They are living day by day. They don't know what tomorrow will happen for them. And you see now the situation become worse and worse and worse.
Thank you. He received an email from the Canadian Embassy last week. It gave no promises they would evacuate his family to safety. He's desperate to get them home. Dane Patterson, CBC News, Prince Albert.
Aid groups are raising alarms over civilians that are trapped in Gaza. They say several trucks expected to cross into the besieged Palestinian territory tomorrow are nowhere near enough. Margaret Evans reports.
In Israel, preparations for an anticipated ground invasion of Gaza well underway. Reservists from across the country and around the world refreshing their training. Some 360,000 in all. Their cars clogging roads outside reserve bases right across the country. Israeli-Canadian Noy Leib, living in New York, booked a flight as soon as he heard about the Hamas attacks.
The most emotional plane ride I've been at in my life. And it's just, you're preparing yourself for war.
Trained as a machine gun operator, he believes Israel has no choice.
Having those videos of that torture being sent to those families, and it's worse than ISIS. So my personal opinion is that we have to attack, we have to be strong.
When the ground war will come is anybody's guess. Israel's defense minister has told reservists to use the time to prepare. Thanks, guys. We count on you. Good luck, he's saying. And anyone who now sees Gaza from a distance will see it from the inside. I promise you. In Gaza, on the inside, Israel's air war is now in its 13th day. And those who fled the bombs in the north are finding them in the south too. Another airstrike in Han Yunis today. Parents struggling to protect their families.
Hello.
Hi, Muhammad. It's Margaret.
Oh, hi, Margaret. Hi.
Muhammad Abu Sada is a political science professor from Gaza City, now living in cramped quarters with 60 other people.
It's very crowded with little water. That's the most pressing issue for all of us here in Khani.
That and trying to calm his daughter's fears.
She has been screaming, she has been crying for most of the time because of the sound of the bombing, because of knowing about the death of one of her classmates.
He says Western governments have given Israel the green light to wreak the carnage it has on a long, narrow strip of land with nowhere to run.
What you hear from the U.S. and Western government is that Israel has the right to defend itself, which is fine with me. No one can debate the issue of government or sovereign state to defend themselves, but not to go after children, not to go after civilians, and not to go after hospitals. That's what I'm talking about.
The promise, negotiated by the U.S. President Joe Biden, of just 20 humanitarian aid trucks to be allowed into Gaza remains unfulfilled, now expected tomorrow. Aid agencies say that is a drop in an ocean of need. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Saskatoon's police chief is calling it a career. Troy Cooper announced he will retire in January.
Timing is right for me to step aside right now. Of course, I'd like to spend time with family, as you can imagine, but there's a number of other factors.
Cooper was appointed as chief of Saskatoon Police Service in 2018 after serving more than 3 decades with Prince Albert's police service. Over the past 5 years, he's dealt with the legalization of marijuana, rising overdoses, the pandemic, and calls for police reform. Getting drivers to slow down in school zones is an ongoing challenge for Regina Police. Now, they're calling in some pint-sized recruits. As Jesse Anton reports, they are armed with backpacks and radar guns.
This is Harry Kangel's second year as a safety patroller at his South Regina Elementary School. And now he and other captains on the squad have upped their game.
Oh, there we go, green.
Standing roughly 15 meters behind his patrol partner, Natalie Pelzer, who's holding a radar stick, Kangles is wearing a speedometer backpack. And together, they're reminding drivers to slow down. It's part of a new city pilot project with police, CAA, and 4 school safety patrols. The goal? For drivers to obey the 30K limit.
It's always wonderful to have students involved. It's a really great educational opportunity for them, as well as a way to just highlight that they can play a part in encouraging motorists to slow down.
The city got the idea from Quebec, the first province in Canada to test this out. And so far in Regina, the school resource officers involved say it's working.
I feel like it brings a face to the speed, and then they'll recognize, wow, I'm driving through a school zone and there could be a student or a child nearby, and hopefully they'll make them slow down. And from what we saw, it did.
The job doesn't come without risk, but Kangles and Pelzer say they're committed to keeping their classmates safe, and they take that job very seriously.
I like doing safety patrol because there's more responsibility.
Knowing that you're safe and that there's people protecting you from getting hit by cars just makes you feel so much safer.
The city says it plans to work with police and school safety patrols to see if this initiative is worth expanding. If they determine it is, you could see more of these living speedometers by next year. Jesse Anton, CBC News, Regina.
The provincial government and Office of the Treaty Commissioner unveiled 4 new highway signs today. They'll welcome drivers into different treaty territories. They'll be placed along highways near Estevan, Moosomin, Lanigan, and La Ronge. Each sign incorporates Indigenous languages specific to the area and treaty medals. They join 2 other signs installed between Treaties 4 and 6 along Highway 11 last year. We'll be back after the break. There are no wildfires burning in Saskatchewan right now, and that's big news when you consider we had one of the busiest fire seasons in 25 years. In a wildfire update today, the Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency said the number of fires this year reached 494. well beyond the 5-year average of 387. Fighting those fires took a lot of resources. The province says its fleet of aircraft spent 2,500 hours in the air, and contract helicopters flew 16,000 hours. More than $7 million was spent hiring and operating heavy equipment to protect communities and infrastructure, and still, a lot of forest was burned.
There has been 494 fires so far. That is above our 5-year average of 387 wildfires for the same point in time. Approximately 1.9 million hectares of land was burned this year in wildfires. That is about 5 times the size of Prince Albert National Park and is greater than what was burned in 2015.
It's also a new record for the amount of land burned by fire in a calendar year in Saskatchewan. In total, 43 structures were lost to fire this year in the province, but nobody died.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital Ford Lincoln. Truck Mania is on now.
Our weather specialist Ethan Williams joins me now, and as we talk about wildfire season, it made me wonder, when was the last time we had a smoke warning?
Yeah, well, that's interesting. I just checked, and it looks like it goes back into September. Kind of end of September was when those finally came to an end. Now, we did see one actually in northeastern Alberta the other day, but thankfully that did not spill into northwestern Saskatchewan. But interesting when you consider that those fires are still burning, and they are burning because we are having just these really nice warm temperatures in our province and lots of sunshine as well. Yes, causing a concern with the forest fires, but definitely nice to get outside today with these exceptionally above average temperatures, some 10 degrees or 15 degrees above average in some spots, including in Maple Creek. You got to 24 today, and that puts you pretty close to record temperatures for this time of year. Even now, still sitting in the mid-teens generally for most of us. And I've been talking a lot about this consistent warmth that we've seen in the province, and thought I'd just kind of put it into a few facts for you here. We have a lot of days above 20 degrees in the month of October in Regina this month. The average is usually around 3 or 4, and we're at about 5 if you include today. But October can also be a pretty cold month too. There are days where we don't get above the freezing mark. And in Saskatoon, for instance, you see about 2 of those days in the month of October. So far, we have not had any. But here's the kind of the number that's the most staggering, I think. We see quite a few nights where we drop below the freezing mark. And in La Ronge, that's especially the case. About 21 days out of the 31 in October. That's also the case for Regina and Saskatoon. But in La Ronge, we have yet to have a night in October where we drop below the freezing mark. We have not gotten this far into October where that's happened in quite a while, at least the last decade, at least according to the data that I could find. It's probably longer than that. But things are about to change a little bit, get a little unsettled. We are looking for this low pressure system to bring some showers through the La Ronge area, including central Saskatchewan and portions of the far north overnight tonight, but that ends pretty quickly, probably only about 2 to 4 millimeters there before we get clearing once again through much of the province tomorrow. But then things clouding back over as we head into the weekend. South and central, chance of some showers, but for the north, we could get cold enough that there could indeed be a band of snow that moves through. Now, as that low pressure system overnight and into tomorrow quickly passes by, that will pick up gusts, especially for Regina and southeastern Saskatchewan, but most of us will be a bit breezy here and there. Thankfully, we are looking for those winds to die down as we get into Saturday, but that means that things are going to drop off. Not before we have the Rider game on Saturday, though. I think we're looking for a very nice day for that. Highs around 12 degrees, just above seasonal. A sharp drop-off comes as we start the work week next week. And then, yes, the chance of snow all 3 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, a bit of an unsettled pattern moving in there with highs closer to the freezing mark and those overnight lows starting to drop as well. For Saskatoon, again, we're noticing those overnight lows get into those minus conditions. You'll still be quite nice over these next few days. Get out and enjoy the weekend because I think it's going to be, Sam, the last kind of nice one for a while here as that potential snow moves in.
I bring back what I said yesterday, shovels and scrapers this weekend.
Just in case.
Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
I thought it was a creative way to remember these stores that we grew up with and places we grew up with.
A New England man pays homage to much-loved businesses that have gone belly up by creating Halloween tombstone memorials. The memorials for retailers like Sears, Radio Shack, and Blockbuster Video come complete with dates. The cemetery has become a big hit over the 3 years since he started the project. We'll be back after the break. They say good things come in small packages, and at the grocery store, big packages don't necessarily mean big servings or big savings. Sophia Harris has more on shrinkflation.
After Ellen Newell bought 2 boxes of the same cereal for the same price, she noticed something was not the same.
This one's taller, it's skinnier.
The taller box, new packaging. The shorter box, old packaging, being phased out. But taller doesn't mean more. The new box has 12% less cereal.
How could they do that to us? You feel upset, you feel deceived.
It's called shrinkflation, when a company shrinks a product, but not the price or packaging, making it hard to detect.
If I had to notice this in the store, I absolutely would not have bought this box.
Shrinkflation isn't new, but it's getting more attention as Canadians struggle with high grocery prices.
Everything seems to be more expensive now, and by simply reducing the size of their products, people maybe feel like they're being tricked a little bit.
CBC News went grocery shopping and found several cases of shrinkflation where the price hadn't changed. This box of crackers has shrunk by 10%, this mac and cheese by 11%, and this cake mix is now 13% lighter. Often companies say they shrink a product to offset rising costs, but there's a growing call for them to be more transparent about it.
The average person, times are a little tough, and they need to be aware of where their money is going. And if their money's getting them a little less, you're officially getting taxed on your ice cream.
Neil Chohan makes TikTok videos exposing shrinkflation.
Have you noticed that Ben & Jerry's ice cream seems smaller?
This is his latest target, but he applauds Ben & Jerry's for acknowledging online it shrunk its ice cream by 5% to combat higher supply costs.
I think it's a great first step.
This consumer rights advocate says one solution is for Ottawa to mandate companies alert customers when they shrink a product.
They could have a specific label that says that the amount, the quantity has been reduced.
Brazil already makes companies note recent weight changes on product labels. France has pledged to do the same.
We are in solution mode to bring relief to Canadians.
Facing pressure over high food prices, Ottawa says it will investigate shrinkflation, but no action plan as of yet.
The next day, I went back to Walmart, and
as for Newell, when she realized the older boxes had more cereal, she bought several before they disappeared. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Toronto.
And Ethan is back with one last look at your weather.
Nothing shrinking about our temperatures overnight tonight. It is going to stay warm. And look at that, 11 degrees at 8 a.m. You may need to take a windbreaker, though, because that wind is going to make it feel a little bit cooler. And that wind only going to pick up as we head into the afternoon. Gusts over 50. Temperature kind of topping out around that 14-degree mark, so we'll also almost be at that daytime high there. A little bit of cloud cover in Saskatoon tomorrow morning, but still quite nice. And heading into the afternoon, those temperatures above the 10-degree mark and still a little bit windy. And speaking of Saskatoon, Trent managed to catch some whooping cranes, 2 adults and a young one, just north of the city the other day. And he also saw a few thousand snow geese as well, Sam, aptly named for the weather that's to come.
Oh, wow, you had to end there.
I did.
Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
Oh, that's it for us tonight. For news anytime, you can always head to cbc.ca/sask, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or download the CBC News app. Ethan will be back with more local news tonight at 11. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great night.